life. Of course, death taxes and the WWE still not, building over for a pay-per-view. If you know what I mean, we have been over an entire calendar year, nearly the entire calendar year. It still feels like insufficient build been lacking on Smackdown because we had zero build. Like we have supposedly like they completely wrapped over the door with the Corbin and Murphy feud, I guess. The tag titles were defended in just the pay-per-view because they knew nobody cares about Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. Not saying that the match was particularly bad, it just had very insufficient build, especially for a pay-per-view. Thanks, like, if you guys haven't seen my Street Profits video, kind of said that they kind of suck ass. And yet, over all that time, hopefully it didn't delete some of my videos, oh my god. But, yeah, we had Smackdown. Would I say it was the most, like, good build over a show? Well, Kevin Owens looked like a really idiotic jobber. I know he's trying to be like, I know his type. And they tried to, like, take him down, fighting back and try to make sure he doesn't make it to the pay-per-view. I understand it, but he was still over to the arena in the training, in the health facility, trying to get an interview, still trying to look for Roman Reigns' locker room, even though he was already sent out. And that was it for the opening of the show. Then later on, Jey Uso would come assaulting over a steel chair every time Kevin Owens would even attempt to get up. And when Adam Pearce was trying to at least persuade him to leave the arena. And then it ended up after the main event for Bianca Belair versus Bayley. Obviously, that took a lot of build to care about. With her freaking ugly ding dong, here it is t-shirt. Oh god, it's so terrible. And it ends with Jey Uso coming around burying Jey Uso and Roman burying him under a lot of tables, ladders, chairs, battering the piss out of him, making sure he feels like a nuisance. And you would think like a former Universal Champion would try to play it a bit more smart. Obviously, thinks he's been persuaded to at least wait until the pay-per-view to deal with Roman in his own way, and he just wants to kick his ass. I understand it's a personal matter, and Roman made it personal, but it just feels so unlikely, not smart why Kevin Owens is behaving like this, even though it's been shown that, he's more calculated or he'll be patient at times where he would need stuff like this. And it's so dumb to kind of treat Kevin Owens like this. So, that's practically what happened the majority of the show. The rest of what happened in the show, the SmackDown Tag Team Championships were defended just with a go-home show before TLC. And it was against the Street Profits defending it against Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. It was a pretty okay match. There was this little double hook twisting neck breaker that I liked from Angelo Dawkins. Decent surprise bumps, especially when he tried to go for the frog splash, and then Robert Roode ticked him off. The match was like going a bit more fast paced, squared off, but I hate the way they try to do like rest pump up spots. Like they try to put the wrestler over into an impossible rest hold. So they try to pump up the crowd, and it's like, why are you clapping? Like, no chance. I hate the way the audio just makes it feel so unorganic, especially when a wrestler's trying to come back. And he doesn't try to reach over for his partner. Like, the way they go for hot tags just feel like less climactic, or at least less, like, threatening to, less exciting to go over for the hot tag. There was a counter over from the super kick. He tried one time over when there was an enziguri, and then Ford was going for the frog splash. It looked a bit incomplete, or it looks like he was a bit too late. But Ziggler came off trying to put it over his knees up, but it looked like Ford still connected until it got broken up by Roode. There was a count over for the glorious DDT. The match obviously ends with a roll-up pin for the victory. Underwhelming enough because the Street Profits been tag team champions and they kind of earned it undeservingly over swapping just the championships because they were champions. But an okay title match, I'll give it that. Next up, we have, of course, the Red Squad facing off against Billie Kay and her next partner, another jobber, Tamina. Tamina's just there now. It's so depressing. Like the daughter of a murderer. I mean, the daughter of Jimmy Superfly Snuka coming around just jobbing all over the place. They try to make her as a threat, then not a title threat, then sort of not a title threat. Then she's just there, part of the women's mid card. When they really do need to build up on women. What's Tamina's character other than just this slimmer Nia Jax? She can't get over. She has a very minimalist move set. She comes around trying to. I like the Billie Kay resume gimmick, but I feel like it would be better off if it was like a managerial suit other than just her wrestling. And yet she's coming around doing resumes. Like that's not what I feel like you should do, especially when you're trying to be a pro wrestler. So, came up with Liv Morgan. They try to do some stuff over with the Slammies and dumb things like Wonder Woman. I don't care. They try to gang it up as this googly female friends thing. It just comes off looking a bit corny, especially when these chicks were literally feuding for a little bit until they had their wishy-washy like reunion thing on the KO show a couple months back. It just feels like they're just doing this to at least be more expansive with the tag division because of course Chelsea Green is injured and Liv Morgan's just more over than Ruby Riott. That's just my opinion on the fact. And match ends with obviously the finish involving Ruby Riott. I've been picking up the dub. What's some kind of kick finisher? If I can just look up what their finisher is named. The match ends as quick as Tamina just comes ragdolling on Liv Morgan. Barely little selling. The match ends as short as like a Divas era match. And just nobody benefits over the factor other than just Billie Kay is just treated over as a jobber. And so is the rest of the tag team partners she picks. It just feels so boring and unfulfilling over what they got for most of these chicks because the most are getting built in the women's division. It's just Bianca Belair and Bayley. And while Bayley looks like a Hot Topic camel, Bianca Belair is just not getting pushed. It just feels a bit undefining because Bayley just sucks. And she's not as good in the ring as people think she is. Remember, opinion. And no one cares about Carmella against Sasha Banks. With her little sommelier, black midget, Negro slave that she comes around always with to, repeat orders to order the champagne. Like Corey Graves just allows of like Carmella to have a little slave. So there we go. So while that's all happening, we of course had Carmella taunting over Sasha Banks, saying there's already a champagne celebrating before the pay-per-view because she's better than her. Sasha Banks comes out. It was just a generic promo. I'm not saying that it wasn't bad. I'm just saying she has no style over it because she just behaves like any other chick. It has no charisma. She's supposed to be like this basic chick, hot blonde, but she isn't that attractive. She has very little charisma to bank over, and there's no legitimacy over all of this, even though she was a former SmackDown Women's Champion. And this was built up over months of jumping her, Sasha Banks, over the last couple of weeks, then getting your shot, and then having a DQ finish. So Sasha comes from behind, assaulting her sommelier yet again gets pimp slapped, and the match ends with Sasha Banks ending on top after tossing champagne with her. I guess it was okay, but I just thought it was a bit bland. We also had Otis against Shinsuke Nakamura. And Shinsuke came from like holding like tag titles, the Intercontinental title, to like jobbing out to Otis. And I understand those belts really don't mean anything anymore, in my opinion. So I mean, Sami Zayn is like having the best year of his life right now, and at least he shows like at least he shows an ethics of charm and a character. So I'll at least give it that over most of the time when we were calling him an indie jobber. And now he's at least an indie jobber with a character, and at least he shows himself to be at least with talking ability out of like Kevin Owens and stuff that have potential but have just a crappy build. So That's technically what I have on Sami Zayn. He also had his Sammy Awards, because of course we have the Slammy Awards, even though we cut off most of our roster. So that's practically what we got. But yeah, Nakamura got jobbed out again. Don't even know why they still have that tag team, even though that was all because of Sami Zayn. So we have Otis being coached by Gable, like, do what not to do. Garbage. I don't know why this jobber's even managing him. It feels trash. Just exploder suplex, some counters over kicks, clotheslines. Otis just comes around just beating like a guy who won the Royal Rumble and crap. Yeah, people forgot that exists because Nakamura shouldn't have won that Royal Rumble. I get that he was sort of over the hardcore fans, but some people just know that this Japanese weirdo that comes around wearing leather all the time, doing Naruto hand signs, should not be winning the Royal Rumble. That could have been at least Bray Wyatt or something back in 2018 when Bray still had a chance to win the world title, and he did the next month, but it just feels forced. Just give it to Nakamura. He did after forced to for Gable advise him to do a German suplex again after he had him in the corner where he does his little corner splash. He suplexes again, goes for the corner splash, and Nakamura gets jobbed out. Completely dumb, weak, forgettable match. I don't know why he got himself being this blue collar man, even though he's just a fat meathead dude. Like, no part of him shows him, and they want to make this rip off Dusty Rhodes character for a guy that has very little charisma. I can understand over the charm and that he was over for 3 months over the year, and then he completely lost that after Mandy Rose went off to Raw. And there's nothing to play over with Otis, thinks there's no foil. And Gable's supposed to be over that foil with his rip off Kurt Angle, being another midget Olympian. But unlike Kurt Angle, he was undersized. And yes, undersized wrestlers can play an advantage in amateuristic wrestling. He has no personality. He has no semblance of a charm. He has no charisma. And unlike Kurt Angle, he's not funny. So, yeah. Screw Chad Gable. I don't care about this whole training shtick, that the Elvis style that he's doing with Otis. It's so crap. It's so corny to at least try to force around our throats that Otis still needs to be on television after getting rid of his Money in the Bank briefcase. They're literally about to give him the freaking Kennedy treatment and then make him go to freaking Impact or something like they did with Kennedy in the first place. And then we had Bob Backlund looking as Big E coming around for the Sammy Awards, sabotaging one of the cards, so obviously it's going to say Big E in it. And it was sort of funny because he had his awards be spray painted versions of his action figures. And it's literally him sucking himself off, calling himself Comeback Wrestler of the Year, Match of the Year, bloody blah. Then Breakout Superstar of the Year is supposed to be Sami Zayn. I get it, it's Big E because they're feuding for the IC title. And it just feels like such a comedic thing, especially when we had so much hopes over for Big E. At least he's getting a program for the Intercontinental Championship. But people expected him more over the main event scene. And Phoenix, I feel so small played. I think they're going to just put that over for Daniel Bryan come Royal Rumble. And this just feels so much of over comedic build. Big E comes around just beating his ass and then breaking the figure. It ends like that. It just feels so underplayed. This feels like it could have been just a week ago they could have done this, after letting him just lose off count out again. So, that's practically what we got. I think these guys are going to wrestle come TLC. An average segment, it just felt really corny what we're suspecting. So our main event match of the night would be Bianca Belair versus Bayley. It had some average spots. Over roll up, weirdo roll up where everybody started slapping their butt. And I would expect that off Bianca because she's thick. Sort of out of Bayley because I think she's wearing baggy pants with an ugly hair. You need a paper bag on her face if you want to screw her. The match just continue over dragging out. She wouldn't even use her hair as a weapon to at least try to chain her because I guess because she's not a heel. Counters over the Bayley to belly even though she knows she doesn't use that as a finish. She rakes over the eyes after it looks like she got it for the gorilla press, and then it ends with a face buster. So it ends with Bayley picking up over the win from a weak finish, especially when you want to try to build over your pay per view. I mean, the only thing built up, I guess, is Roman Reigns still looking on top, other than Kevin Owens saying after he just got buried along freaking furniture in a ladder. Hell, I won't give up, even if you have to kill me. Like a TLC match would be a more conclusive way to end it, like they did with Edge and Cena. And when they returned their feud back in '09, uh, it ended in a last man standing match, like conclusive feuds. And then you come over with a TLC match for the first time Kevin and Roman face off since like 2016 for the Universal title. And it ends so underwhelmingly in a TLC. Well, not in a TLC match. I don't know what kind of match stipulate they gotta put it in, and it just feels so wakingly boring. With Kevin Owens just looking like a weakened idiot every time he just comes over, tries to call out. I understand it's gonna be like, oh, the numbers are gonna be against him. He doesn't care. He's just gonna keep fighting. I get the fight Owens fights shtick, and it just comes around with him just not looking intelligent. Even though he played most of his career in WWE as an annoying, smart but tough heel, it just feels a bit like dumb in my opinion. And this Fatso is just gonna come around trying to be the forcible good guy, and all in this. It just feels completely dumb. Hopefully the match at least ends some entertaining, because I don't think they have a stipulation, but somehow Styles and McIntyre have a TLC match. And these take very minimalist builds because this is like the first time they're wrestling and you have to get a TLC match. Yo, I need you all to stop with these gimmick match pay-per-views, man. They don't sell. They are never compelling in the storyline wise, especially when these are like the first time these guys actually wrestle each other in the first part of the year. Like, there's no reason for this to happen. And over the minimal build, like, what's going to be a pay-per-view match on? We have like 2 pay-per-view matches for Smackdown. To be honest, we have the women's title on the line, and then we got Roman against Owens. They already did the tag title. They already did like the tag title match on SmackDown with very little build. No one cares about the Otis and Gable thing. Bianca Belair already did a one-off match with her. So, like, there's very little build over what's going to happen. So most of what's relying on is the news about Naomi returning as a tag team partner for Asuka, Nikki Cross having a heel turn, and that's about it. I'm really not compelled to watch it, but thanks, I forcibly make this my job. I have to be obligated to watch it. So if you guys enjoyed the SmackDown review, that I hope you do. You better uh then that's all I got for most of what's happening, man. I wish I wouldn't be this not ecstatic for a pay-per-view, especially for the final parts of the year. But it just feels like it's completely generic. They make a pay-per-view called Extreme Rules strictly for Extreme Rules purposes. It doesn't make it special. It makes it forced. Especially if you're gonna have the same stipulation the next week on Raw. Like, don't have a TLC match. Like, they have a Hell in a Cell like, especially back in 2016. They had a Hell in a Cell match with Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, and that was at least a one-off thing for an important storyline. And sure, it ended stupid. At least they had a major reason for it. The same year, Rollins and Owens were fighting for the Universal title. No story, not much of a story, except Kevin Owens was just an annoying heel. That kind of shit itself doesn't sell the factor of your stipulation. It doesn't sell the factor of the two guys wrestling in it, and it just diminishes the reason why the pay-per-view should ever exist. So that's just my opinion why I'm not even compelled to try to give TLC the time of day. So that's practically what I got here for the review. If you guys think differently, please comment on the comment section below. Love to hear your opinion. That's it coming from me, and I hope you guys have a happy holiday.